Wednesday afternoon Android Developers Office Hours Hangout. This is your EMEA edition coming to you from Munich, Germany. That's me, I'm Sparky, and we've got Matt and Nick coming from London, UK, and we're here to answer for you any questions or address any topics of discussion that you want to have about developing apps for Android. And with that, let's see who's in the Hangout. Nobody's in the Hangout. Crickets. Chirp, chirp, chirp. We had some technical difficulties today, so we got off to a little bit of a late start. It may take people a little while to catch up to us. While we're waiting for some people to join us in the Hangout, perhaps we can turn to the moderator and see what question we have queued up. Oh, I heard somebody ding. Did anybody come in? Not yet. Okay.
I think that's just me inviting a bunch of people to come join us.
Excellent. That would be great. Let me call up the old moderator and see what people have asked. Martin S. from Northwest UK. So I guess this will be a question for Matt and Nick to answer. List detail page scenario. In single pane mode, activity hosts the list fragment, user selects from list. Should the detail fragment be displayed by replacing the list fragment in the same activity, or should detail page be launched in its own activity? Pretty classic multi-fragment, multi-activity question. The way we usually solve this in our application templates is when you're running this app on a large format device like a 10-inch tablet, then we would recommend putting two things side by side, so you have your detail and your list in the same place. And then you run that same app on a smaller device like a phone, you should probably completely swap out the list view for the detail view. And the easiest way to program this is to put the list in one fragment and the detail in another. And generally speaking, when you completely clear away one set of UI and replace it completely with another, that's kind of an activity change, and that's probably going to be the cleanest and easiest way to do it. And as I noted in my response in the moderator, I think that by making it a new activity is going to be the easiest way to get the right semantics for navigation using the back button. You guys want to comment on that at all? Did you pretty much cover it?
Thorough answer.
Yeah. Can't top
We
that.
have been joined in the Hangout by Jonathan Ward. Hello, Jonathan. Do you have anything on your mind about Android development?
Well, this is the first Hangout that I'm doing, so I'm not sure if my microphone is working. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
We hear you.
Oh, fantastic. I didn't have any particular question. I just wanted to join the conversation as my first developers office hours to see what's up.
Oh, well, welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Where are you based?
I'm actually based in the U.S.
Uh-huh.
Well, then you'll be able to get your fill of Hangouts because the Mountain View team will be having another Hangout just like this one in 8 or 9 hours.
Great.
So what's on your mind? What are you developing these days?
Well, I'm developing a music application, and actually one of the things that I'm trying to debug today is ViewPager seems to not update fragments when its underlying adapter gets notified of a dataset change. I don't know if you've run into that issue.
I generally duck the whole dataset change issue entirely by using only loaders. So.
That's one approach. And one I've seen as well is sometimes you need to make sure is your adapter returning stable IDs? Because basically there's a few optimizations in the ViewPager where it will try not to reload data if it thinks it's already loaded it. I think is it the ID it uses to work out if it's the same page it's already loaded? I forget.
I can't remember. I kind of vaguely remember when I was doing something similar to this, I ended up having to do a little bit of trickery around it in terms of sort of async tasks kicking in. But I think what I did was using the view holder design pattern to kind of ensure that it would be the view holder that would update from the cursor and then update the views that it needed to do. So that might be a different way of kind of looking at it. But yeah, I know there is a lot of kind of optimizations with the, like you say, the view page.
Yeah.
If you're looking into any of that sort of view pager, fragment, adapter sort of thing, definitely do be at least passingly familiar with the fragment samples in the API demos sample app, because they implement a lot of interesting fragment behaviors in there. Things like view pager combined with a tab manager, and you know, fragments in a view pager, each with its own list view, each recording its own state. They have the throttle loader, which takes a list fragment and fills it. I think it's like 1 row per second or something like that. And you can just kind of get in there and see different ways that the Android engineers have implemented activities using these different APIs. So API demos definitely should be in everybody's repertoire as a great go-to place for reference code. It's not the end-all be-all, but it's got a lot of good samples in it.
Great.
I see we've been joined in the Hangout also by Alejandro and Emil, and just now by Marcus. So welcome, guys. Welcome to the Hangout. Do you have any questions about Android development or what's on your mind?
I just wanted to say I heard you talk about the page switcher, what do you call them? And I've actually used it for fragments, and I had some problems because I actually had fragments containing them. So I had fragments inside fragments, and that's not really supported.
That's a no-no.
Yeah, exactly. So I ended up making like a lightweight version of fragments, which only pretty much has a view and not even a life cycle, but it works pretty well actually.
Cool. How did you do that?
Well, I just made them from scratch. It's a pretty small class. I might put them up somewhere at some point, but not yet. But it's a pretty simple class. It's just a class that inflates a view when it's created.
So did you use any of the Android framework source code from source.android.com, or did you roll this all yourself?
Well, I mean, this is a really small class. It's like 50 lines maybe. So I just pretty much borrowed some concepts, like having. I think it has like visibility, and it has some helpful method to inflate views.
So is it actually a view? It's like a custom view, basically?
No. It's more like a fragment.
Okay.
Well, let me see if I can put it up somewhere.
Yeah, definitely throw a gist out there.
Yeah, that's very cool. We love to hear what you guys do when you take the framework and run with it and take it in your own direction. So I guess some of the more popular places that people tend to put up their contributions to the code base are in the code.google.com or in GitHub, I would say, is probably the top two. What do you think, Matt?
Yeah, I'd say GitHub is generally pretty popular these days.
Yeah, I think that's the one that I've seen most of the kind of source code being stuck up on GitHub.
Yeah, I noticed that's where the mighty action bar Sherlock hangs out. All right. Who else is in the call? Emil, what's on your mind?
Hey, I think you saw my question on the moderator about text views disappearing when rotated.
Oh, yes. I was trying to write some code to prove that out, and I didn't really get anywhere. I kind of started in on it too late.
Yeah, I wanted it to respond again, but I didn't see a way to respond again in moderator. Just edit my old comment. But yeah, it's really just I rotate a canvas with a matrix around the x-axis, and the text just disappears only when it's 2 lines. When it's 1 line, it works fine.
Very interesting.
Okay, more than 1 line. I mean, 3 lines probably doesn't work either. But.
Right.
And I have no idea why. I mean, I can do a workaround by drawing the text to a bitmap first, but that's just bad.
That's kind of what canvas drawing is, though, isn't it? I mean.
Well, yeah, but drawing it to a bitmap before rotating.
Yeah. This is not a particular specialty of mine, so I would suggest take your code fragment and put it on Stack Overflow and see what the community says. And as I said in moderator, share with me the URL and I'll try to find some time to dig into it myself. But I would bet you that somebody out there in the community can answer that question way faster than I could even get to it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'll probably do that. Thanks.
Yeah. Oh, we've lost Alejandro.
Just wanted to say I pasted a link to the page class chat.
Hey, look at that. We have a link from GitHub. Cool. All right. Thanks, Marcus. If no one else has anything that you want to talk about right away, I will go back into the moderator and see what else we've got queued up. Okay. Let's see.
Yeah.
Were you about to say something?
No, I'm just having a look at the gist that Marcus threw out there, which is in the. We should probably paste it into the G+ comments as well.
Yep.
Very interesting. I see what you mean about being a lightweight fragment.
Yeah.
You can do a lot in 2 lines of code, huh? Okay, the next question from Nuno Gonçalves from Portugal. Advanced NFC support and documentation is not the best. Is there any good book to look at? Actually, I think I have seen a book about Android NFC, but I don't recall the title of it. Maybe try looking in the Android Developers Forum and see if somebody is talking about it in there. Android developers are discussed. For example, I was trying to talk in high data rate mode with an NFC VTag and concluded the stack does not support this. Again, not really my specialty. I would say if you really want the definitive source, he sounds pretty sophisticated, and I would say maybe dig in the source code. There's probably some answers in there. Next, can I make clickable drawables inside text view? Drawable created using HTML.ImageGetter from images downloaded from the web. I want to be able to zoom the images. Nick, didn't you and Rich talk about this last week?
Yeah, I think we covered this one.
Is this the same one?
Yeah, we
I don't think it was. I thought I cleaned it out. I seem to recall your answer was no, you can't. Is that right?
Yeah.
You can make the whole text view clickable, but you can't really assign a separate click region inside it. But you could.
I haven't tried that. That's not something I've done.
I think if you were going to try and do it, you'd have to wrap the image in an A class, but then you'd have nothing to kind of hook that up to the code to get a click. So I don't think you could do it.
It would be cool if Google Now integrated with Google Events, i.e., who's coming to event name and read out a list of yes responses and/or show the list. Are Google planning on allowing developers to produce custom cards for the Now feature? That would be a forward-looking statement about something where nothing has been announced, and I'm afraid we can't say anything on the topic. So you can take that as neither a confirmation nor a denial, simply a lack of answer.
Let's take one question, which is from the G+ comments. So Michael Back, hi Michael, if you're following along. He says he's been using the most excellent, sorry, that's my words, not his, tutorial on Android training about using bitmaps and LRU caches and all that good stuff to make sure you don't get out of memory issues. And very observantly, he noticed on the Friday review last week, a couple of our team members said that there's going to be an update coming to that class. And he's wondering if it's still recommended to use the training class as is, if an update's already in the works. So I'd say all the techniques are still valid. They've just been slightly kind of improved and polished a bit more. And if you want to take a look at that, if you actually go to the Google I/O application from this year, from 2012, if you search for code.google.com and search it for I/O Shed, I/O SCHED, most of the application has been open source now, and that actually includes a lot of the improvement. That's where our team was kind of like working on stuff and like squashing bugs and actively improving the code. So if you take a look in I/O Shed, you can actually get an early look, as it were, of the updated version. So I'd say check that out. But the basic version in the training course is still valid. Cool.
And we are joined by Lucas.
Lucas of pattern fame, I believe.
Yep.
Has everyone seen Lucas's app? Pattern, P-A-T-T-R-N, is a very cool app for getting very nice wallpapers for your phones and tablets.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I don't have a room here at the office, so I have to walk around.
Hanukkah rice for
yeah.
the audience.
I work for Mozilla, so I'm at the Mozilla office in London.
Cool.
So all the rooms are booked. So I just got curious about the developer office hours, so here I am.
So instead of hanging out, you're kind of walking out.
Yeah, walking around, yeah.
Well, you're making me feel busy.
Well, it's good to have you in the Hangout.
Yeah, just here to say hi and see what's going on.
So do you want to share with us a little bit of what you do at Mozilla?
Okay, so I work on Firefox for Android, pretty much. So last year the initial version of Firefox for Android was based on the same technologies than the desktop version. So Zool, I don't know if you're familiar with it, but Zool-based stuff. But we were having a lot of performance problems because of that. Zool is a very chunky library, so on devices with slow file systems, the library would just take ages to load. So on some devices, we would have like startup times of like 30 seconds. So it was a bit ridiculous. So we decided to rewrite the whole app, the whole front end anyway, so since October. So a month ago, we released the first version of what we call native Firefox for Android, which is in practice Firefox backend, which means Gecko rendering engine, but with a native Android front end.
How do you handle plugin compatibility if they're all written for the Zool engine?
You mean extensions and stuff?
Yeah.
So we are like, independently of what we're doing, like Mozilla is moving to a more API-based kind of thing instead of the Zool term is called, it's like overlay. So overlay is like pretty much messing with the UI from the add-on, so you can add menu items and stuff. So we are moving from that to a more API-based thing. So we have a JavaScript API to add menu items and stuff. So it doesn't matter really what kind of technology is behind the UI. So you can still do things like add a menu item, add a context menu item, all those things, but through a more controlled API. So what you cannot do anymore is Zool overlay stuff, which is because it's not Zool anymore. But we still have support for with the Firefox on Android, for example. So yeah, there's a bit of like certain amount of work to adapt add-ons, but it's not too much. So yeah, so right now we are working on the tablet version of Firefox for Android. It will be released very soon, and also native and stuff. So it was a very good exercise of all the responsive design stuff and all the all the stuff that Android gives you. So it was an interesting thing. Android is not a small app, as you can imagine. So yeah, I mean, we have like 9, 10 versions of the same icon everywhere because it's kind of a ridiculous amount of assets. But yeah, it's worth it just to keep it like looking good on any type of device, right?
So it's a single APK.
Yeah, single APK, yeah.
Brilliant.
Oh.
And is it all
Go on.
built in London?
Sorry?
All built in London?
No, no. We are like, yeah, spread out. Mostly like in the U.S., but the office in London is quite new, so we're just like two people in this team here. So the office opened in April, so it's quite new.
Cool.
And as you mentioned, like my spare time project is Pattern, just this wallpaper app for like that grabs all the patterns from color lovers. If you don't know this website, it's really cool. It's a very nice community. You can create patterns, color palettes and stuff. So so I just thought it would be fun to have an app that grabs all those patterns. Like it's a lot of stuff being created every day, so it's more than 200,000 patterns. So it's a lot of stuff. And also I wanted to have an opportunity to use Android APIs that I don't have a chance to use at work, so it's kind of more like a learning experience than anything else.
Cool. You get to take a little vacation from Mozilla and run Chrome for a time.
One of the reasons I like it is that, as you were stating before with Firefox, is the responsive design aspects. Like I think you've done a nice job of customizing the look and feel for different size devices. So I have it on my phone, on my 7-inch tablet, and on my 10-inch tablet, and it really kind of alters its presentation to really take advantage of screen space. And I think you've done a nice job there.
Oh, great. Thanks. Yeah, one thing that kind of sucks in terms of Nexus 7 specific development is that we don't have an x86 emulator yet for Jelly Bean. So it gets a bit on the way because it's just so slow.
Yeah.
to test stuff there. Is there any estimate for getting like an x86 image?
I think Intel create the x86 images, so
okay, it's not Google. Okay. Yeah, maybe that's a stupid question, but maybe an obvious one. Like, why isn't x86 the primary target for emulator images? Because that's where developers are anyway, right?
I guess, well, the answer's in the title, really, emulator, that we were really trying to emulate the devices it was actually running on. So I think, the ARM-based ABIs were the vast majority of devices out there. So we were I think that was our primary focus, to, provide a platform where people can develop against what it's going to run on the phones. I think that's, historically where we came from. I don't know if that's going to change in the future or what, but I think that's why we're where we are.
Yeah. I kind of see the point. It's just that for front-end development, most of the time you don't really care about the architecture. You just care about seeing how the app feels very quickly, and having a very quick is so nice. Like when you get the emulator with an x86 image, it just makes a big difference.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's just me. I don't know.
No, I completely get your point. Do you ever use the interface building tools in Eclipse?
Yeah, I use it. Yeah, it helps, but like for things like animations and stuff, I mean, there's a lot of like back and forth just to see, like tweaking different properties to see how it feels.
Yeah.
And for animations, I mean, if we had a quick way to like preview an animation, that would be nice. But so like for now, we just have to run the application and see how it goes.
So what do you tend to do? You tend to develop on device instead?
Yeah. For Nexus 7, it was interesting because I didn't have a device while I was writing the app, so I released the tablet version, the tablet UI for Pattern before having the device. And I was a bit scared of like what could happen, because things like I was using the new so bad on the emulator, I couldn't really see how it worked. So it was a kind of a big guess, like that it would work well, but I wasn't sure. So I was happy that it turned out to be pretty good. But yeah,
you did a good job with it. So what tricks? You got any tricks for optimizing for the 7-inch? You're using the SW600DP?
Yeah. Design-wise, I think the interesting thing about 7-inch tablets is, I think it's a type of form factor that is unique in the sense that in portrait and landscape, it behaves very differently. It's different than tablets that you have a lot of space on both orientations. But on 7-inch tablets, on portrait mode, it's almost like a phone, but not really. And in landscape mode, it's more like a tablet, but smaller. So it's a kind of a very big, it's a kind of a gray area type of device. So it's an interesting exercise in terms of design. So what I did with Pattern was pretty much blending the design of the tablet and phones on portrait mode. So you have a one column thing, but still have the sidebar.
Yeah.
But on landscape, you have a more tablet-like thing with the grid and the sidebar. While on phones, you only have one column, and that's it. And then I use the sliding tabs to give access to different types of content. Well, like sidebars don't work well on phones anyway. So.
Yeah, exactly. It just isn't enough horizontal space.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I'm not really keen on the, how do you call it, fly out menu, the thing that
We call it the tray or the drawer.
name for it, flying in menu or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have my issues with it. I think it's not discoverable enough. It's that's one thing. The other is it's kind of hard to get it right. You have to give access to it everywhere, or it feels weird. Google Plus, for example, you have to be in home screen to have access to it. So when you click on the up button, you never know what's going to happen. Is it going to be on the upper level, or is it going to be the flying menu? So it's the same feeling I got with the gingerbread type of menus you had in Android. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know if the app menu is the same thing. You don't know if you slide from the side. Will you see it or not?
Right.
So there's a bit of unpredictability. It's just not. I think we still have to iterate this thing a bit more to get it right, because there's a lot of implementations right now, right?
I'm loath to recommend it to anyone, because like you, I feel like it's settling down still. It hasn't really. And Marcus might have some thoughts on this as well, having implemented it for his app. But yeah, I feel like we're still trying to work out what the right way to do it is. At the moment, I think the current feeling is like the YouTube application is probably the best example of our current
Yeah, I agree.
Where it's kind of seen
From the edge, right?
Almost a direct replacement for the dashboard. It's just accessed from somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know. It works well as a dashboard, but the thing is, depending on the type of app, you might expect it to be available everywhere in the app, no matter in what level of navigation you are. I think Spotify does something like this.
Yeah.
So the flying menu is available everywhere, while in Google Plus it's not. So yeah, there's a lot of work to do in terms of consolidating how it's supposed to behave, so that you always have the same behavior.
So my feeling is it doesn't necessarily have to be or shouldn't be available everywhere. I feel like that just ruins any idea of hierarchy that you have.
True.
So I feel like it should only be available from, if you think of the dashboard or the flight menu itself being the first level, the parent, it should only be available from direct children of that. Is my feeling.
Yeah. The only thing is, maybe it's just a matter of changing the icon or something, but because Google Plus right now has this thing that looks like it's an up-level kind of thing, but it's flying menu. Mm-hmm. And Spotify changes the icon to be something like a menu-looking kind of thing. Maybe that's it. Maybe it's just about giving the right hints to the user.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that overloading the exact same UI widget was perhaps a mistake. The ironic thing is that having that leftward pointing chevron actually looks more like it's intended for a fly-in menu than it does for up.
My problem is, if you think of the icon being up, it makes perfect sense. It's the top level of your app, and then you're kind of going down, so you go up a level to get to the root of it. It's just I worry that users don't think of it as up, as it points left. That's my issue.
Mm-hmm. So it's kind of hard to explain the concept of up for us to explain it to a user. So I work for Spotify, by the way, and we chose to use the menu-looking thing, like Facebook does it, just to make it clear that this will show the menu. And this is something I debate a lot with Nick about, how the right way to do this. But I'm not really sure. We didn't really want to have an hierarchy Spotify app, because if you use it on desktop, it's much more like a web browser. So you go back and forth. So it kind of made sense to us to always have the menu available side.
Yeah, I know that, at least from the perspective of the Android UI designers or UX designers, they're still kind of they're still sort of coalescing on their story with regards to these slide-in menus. But the sense that I get is that they're not going to go in the direction of having it available everywhere. That they're going to recommend restricting where it's available from.
Well, of course, it kind of makes sense based on what kind of application you're making, how it's working. So I'm not saying it always should be like that, but
yeah.
I'm still not really sure how it should be.
A hierarchy to music, though, right? Like you're in a song which is part of a playlist or an album, which is part of a list of albums or list of. I feel like with the implementation, I get your point about jumping between different sections, but I feel like you lose the cost of that is you lose that any kind of structure, which I think people feel a strong attachment to structure. I think people instantly understand structure. I think it's how the real world works and how we've been trained to think about things for a long time. So I feel like you kind of lose that a little bit.
Yeah, but still kind of hard. I mean, in our case, it's kind of easy to do it in some part of the apps, like artists and albums. Pretty easy to make a hierarchy, and even other users' playlists and going to the user profile and so on. It's kind of hard to fit everything into this. It also get this problem that if you browse around a lot, and it's kind of easy to lose your place and not be able to go back to where you just were. So it's kind of a tricky. I mean, I'm not 100% content with how I do it.
You have a lot of browsing history, which you'd have to keep on hitting the back button a lot of times to walk back along that breadcrumb trail. But up is supposed to be hierarchy, which should never really be that deep.
Yeah, I know. But it's still kind of. I'm not really sure how we should do it.
Yeah, I think that the thing with it depends on how you see the fly-in menu. One way to see it, which I think it's the case, like it's how Spotify implements it. It's more like a jump list instead of a dashboard.
Yeah.
So it's pretty much about having a very fast shortcut to go to any of the routes of navigation in the app, instead of working more like a dashboard. I mean, there's a point about it. The problem with that is, I think the main problem right now is there are too many variations of the same pattern. Mm-hmm. So I think the important thing is once you consolidate that, if it ever appears as an official API, it should behave always the same. It shouldn't be like, okay, my app works more like a jump list, so let's do the global thing. Oh no, mine is more like a dashboard. Let's do the only. This would be very confusing.
Yeah.
I think people are pretty much in agreement with that sentiment, but because it is such a fresh new UI feature, that consensus hasn't really gelled yet about how it's going to be.
Yeah, the issue I see, but I think I totally agree with you. It's pretty much an ongoing. It's something that's still consolidating itself. Yeah, but it shouldn't take too long because I think it's just spreading out quite quickly. A lot of people are thinking that this is great, let me do it, and then everyone does differently.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think it would be nice to consolidate this as soon as possible.
I'm sure we have UX people looking at it.
We need to get them to watch this video and get them straightened out.
Comments.
I talked to some UX people on Google I/O that a session about action bars, I think it was, and they actually said they were going to look at this first thing after Google I/O. So hopefully they're working on it.
I was in the room, I heard that question, and it got a big round of applause.
I was not in the room, but I saw the video.
Yeah. Adam Powell, the busiest man in Android. Should we move on from sliding drawers and up navigation, seeing as it tends to hijack our...
Let's maybe spend a moment or two looking at W.L. Wong's question about phone gap.
Sure.
It says, I don't know if you've covered this before, sorry if you have, but would you be able to give some comments on the phone gap framework as a starting point for a developer with 3 to 5 years of PHP and Java experience? Do you guys want to take a crack at this one, or shall I?
I would say if you've got Java experience, I would urge you to look at native development.
Yeah, I think having PHP and Java, realistically, I think if you're looking at phone gap stuff, you're going to be JavaScript heavy. So you'd actually probably be better off going for the native route with a Java application, and plus you'll get a better experience at the end. Users will be more happy when they download it from the Play Store. And plus it's kind of one of those things you're never kind of having to wait for the latest features to be implemented for the phone gap framework. There's lots kind of massive pros by just going down the native route, to be honest.
Yeah, I have a bunch of problems with phone gap apps. I've never seen one that I liked, that I didn't think could provide a better experience if done in native. I think you get into this uncanny valley trap where something that looks like a button is actually, a link, basically an anchor tag, and gets a funny highlight and it doesn't have the same touch response and it's slightly slower to respond to you. I just think when you're stacking abstractions on top of abstractions on top of abstractions, you're going to lose something. You're going to lose the responsiveness or the expectations of how an app performs. So I can understand the arguments for it, like, from a speed of development or cross-platform development or whatever argument. I just think if you don't hate your users, then you should perhaps think about going native.
Strong words.
Wow. Yeah, I will be the first to point out that you are in front of a very biased crowd here, since all of us are employed in the business of convincing you to write the best application that you can using the native Android APIs. But that said, I've also answered this question in the past couple of days in Stack Overflow, and everything that Nick and Matt said I agree with. In addition, any of these so-called cross-platform development frameworks, when you think about it, it's really a platform in its own right. So, they claim to be write once, run everywhere, but all of the platforms they sit on have their own little quirks, and you have to still chase down implementation-specific sort of little hang-ups that appear. So you still basically have to write once and test everywhere. And now because you're using a new platform that's sitting on top of old platforms, rather than having to target your application to N platforms, you have to target it to N+1, where the +1 is this cross-platform framework that you're supposedly writing it in. And then on top of that, there's also that you're stuck in the dilemma of either you're writing to the least common denominator across all the platforms that you're deployed on, or you're accessing platform-specific features on the host platforms that you're sitting on and losing your portability. So one way or the other, there's not really it's not really a win. My general recommendation is to abstract out your business logic and make it as portable as you can. Give your business logic a clean API, and then write the best platform-specific native UI that you can and have your UI interface with the API that you defined into your core logic.
Yeah, I mean, one of the other things that I'd say is I think I once was chatting to a web developer who started looking into PhoneGap. He was quite excited about it, kind of showed me it, and I installed the kitchen sink app on, I think it was just after Froyo had been released. Clicked on the camera link, opened up, and it was a new camera API, and it just crashed instantly. And it's one of those things, if you're going down that route and you're relying on PhoneGap to do all of that properly, you have to then account for the fact that if it doesn't work on certain versions, you've got to kind of wait for the update to be pushed. Whereas if you're kind of writing it yourself, then I think you get more flexibility around intent, etc., how you implement certain features. So yeah, it's one of those things. It's whether you take control of it or you're handing it over to another platform, which is another issue. Entirely separate, of course.
A follow-up question from Mr. WL Long, I assume Mr. I may be wrong, says, would you be able to share some of the most significant difficulties with dealing with various screen sizes and solutions to it? Well, we have some great tutorials on just this. If you go to developer.android.com/training, there's one called, was it working with different screen sizes, managing different screen sizes? I think the key to it is a state of mind, really, is how you approach the development. You approach it a bit like a web developer, really. You know that there's this variation of screen sizes and resolutions and densities, and so you don't go like deep down the hole developing for just like, say the phone in your pocket and then try to retrofit kind of support for other things. I think you approach it from a kind of scaling point of view. So you think, this bit can, should be at the top, and then this bit can grow, and then this bit is at the bottom, or however you might arrange it. So very quickly, a few techniques you can use to use that is like using like relative layouts. I think it's as simple as that. So they can, bits can grow and shrink and so on. Always work in density independent pixels. So it's a concept in Android which allows you to size things in a way that it'll appear the same physical size across different density screens. That's really important. And then to also think about providing alternative layouts for different screen sizes. So if you look at, I think, the top blog post on the Android developers blog at the moment, which I wrote about getting your app ready for Nexus 7 and Jelly Bean, that talks about how you can provide alternative layouts for different devices depending on how much space they have available to you. So that lets you write an application with one piece of logic behind it, but different presentations.
Yeah, I think the one thing I'd add to that is just try and kind of embrace the different buckets, and you can sort of use the different density pixels, so drawable, LDPI, MDPI, etc. Because that doesn't just apply to durables, like Nick said, it applies to layouts and then values, etc. And then you can literally abstract more and more kind of where those final values are coming and let the system decide what's the most appropriate value. If you kind of embrace that, then you start getting a lot of this done for free, and you don't have to write any additional code. It's literally handled by just a simple XML file.
Yeah, use the resources system.
Yeah.
Any tips from the people on the call as well? Any top tips on managing variations in screen sizes?
One thing that helped me a bit in Pattern specifically, maybe it's a kind of an extreme approach, but I think in terms of fragments instead of activities all the time.
Yeah.
So I started with the phone UI, and I started with a lot of activities with one fragment inside most of the time. But then when I moved on to the tablet UI, I had all those components that I could just assemble in different layouts, so that helped a lot. So my tip would be thinking like in terms of fragments from the start, so you can recombine stuff later.
Absolutely, that's a great point. I should have said that. So if you're not familiar with fragments yet, WL Long, it's basically a reusable chunk of functionality. So you kind of write these chunks, and then you can have them laid out in different configurations. So definitely look at that. In fact, if you're starting from scratch on applications, if you take a look at the new templates, which we have in Eclipse, then they'll create fragments for you and so on. So it's a great starting point.
Yeah, without writing any code yourself, you can get an application that has two fragments on screen, one with a list view and another with a detail. Yeah.
Well, on a tablet, and then on a phone device, it'll be full screen each.
I think that's quite a step up from our old Hello World application, I think. So,
Marcus, you have a question incoming in the Google Plus comments, where Johan is asking how Spotify app manages to keep its service running without showing up in the running services list.
Well, we don't.
That's what I thought the answer would be. Good.
Well, we're not trying to, at least. The way it works is that we have a little state machine that keeps track if we're doing something, which means like downloading music or playing music. There are a few conditions that can interrupt this, and like if you unplug headphones and so on. And if you're not doing anything, we have a timeout. I don't remember how long it is, but then we'll actually shut down the service. And if you're actually doing something, it will. If you play music or downloading, it will show a notification, and thereby it's up alive. Otherwise, we're not doing anything particular.
Brilliant. I think that's a good tip. You basically don't do any work you don't need to do in your services. Make sure you finish yourself if you're not doing any work. And perhaps you schedule an update. Don't leave the services running, waiting for some condition.
The process might still be running though, because the Android OS hasn't killed it. But yeah, so we're actually running half the application in a separate process. So that might be like seems to be running even though it's not.
So say it again. Your UI and virtual player in different processes.
The service in UI is different processes, yes.
And then you're talking to each other with AIDL.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay.
I actually have a small question if there's still time.
Yeah. Okay.
I saw that RoboJuice released a new version.
Okay.
I think like yesterday or something, and it looks really cool. You can like auto inject views and resources and all kinds of stuff. I was wondering if someone has actually tried it out and knows if it really works well or not, because I kind of want to do it everywhere if it really works, because it looks really nice.
I've not tried it. Anyone here?
No, I've seen a couple of posts of people playing around with it on Google Plus and really liking it, but yeah, I can't say I play with it myself yet.
I think we've got maybe one or two sample apps floating around somewhere where the engineers use Juice to write them. Pretty cool idea, but likewise, I also have not gotten into it myself yet. It's something that I would definitely keep in my back pocket as something I might want to investigate at some point in the future.
They have some sample apps in the code repository, and it looks really nice. So I just wonder if someone needs more about it. But if not, then I'll look into it myself.
Nice.
Well, I noticed that Nuno Gonçalves was good enough to join us in the Hangout, and he had a question in the moderator. We skimmed over it pretty quickly, but since he was good enough to join us here, I thought maybe we'd revisit that. So you wanted to do you want to ask your question yourself?
I think everything was right, so there's no need to clarify it further. But well, I can repeat. Yeah, that's what he was asking. Well, I just started doing some development with the NFC APIs for the contactless smart cards, and well, the first thing I've already published that issue is that I think that Jelly Bean is not supporting NFC-B. Transceive always failed. I published that issue. It wasn't commented yet, but I guess that is an issue with Jelly Bean. But NFC-B is completely dead for now. It's not possible to talk with the tags. And well, all the rest in the NFC support, I think it's more oriented for the standard tags, for the NDEF, and not for for the technologies to talk directly in raw format with the text. So the specialist documentation is not that good, and I just lost a lot of time, and that was well, actually I didn't place any question. My only question is that if there was any book I could look at, because my issue, for example, this morning was to try to talk with a tag. I'm stalled. My face was stalled. I'm not sure if my speech was or not. I just lost the entire morning trying to talk in high grade with. Okay, yeah, I see the book. In high grade with the tag, and my conclusion is that the stack just doesn't allow it. So yeah, probably I will take this suggestion and try to look at that book.
So, like you say, I think it is quite orientated around doing NDEF.
Yeah.
It's definitely because we see it as it's the most common use case, most useful use case. But you still can do all the text stuff. Like you still can read the raw bytes and so on. Like that's definitely a supported use case.
Well, like I was telling, for example, NFCB is completely dead in Jelly Bean. As far, at least on Nexus S, the NFCB, so one of the technologies for tags, is not working. I just filed that issue a few days ago.
It used to work on ICS and it's regressed.
Yeah, my connection is bad. I'm not getting it.
Sorry, I was just asking. It used to work on Ice Sandwich,
yeah.
and it's regressed. That sounds like a bug. Have you filed that?
Well, no idea, because I just started now with Jelly Bean and I just have one phone. But yeah, I received an exception saying something not supported, operation not, well, technology not supported. So I'm pretty sure it's a regression, because no one was claiming that before.
Interesting.
Yes.
Sounds like a bug. So that.
Yeah, it's for sure an issue. I don't see.
Yeah. So if you go to source.android.com, there'll be instructions there on how to file a bug. So if you could file it as a bug, that's the right way to go ahead with this.
Yeah, actually, I think, well, it's on. It's. I guess it's this one. Just just a moment. I think.
A bug already filed, you're saying?
Well, it's like this, right? On this is the bug I filed. This is the correct place.
Cool. Okay, that's cool. You started.
Yeah, but this is the right place to file issues.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's just that. Thanks for the book suggestion.
Yeah, I remembered where I saw it. I think somebody in my Google Plus stream is the author of it and said, "Hey, look, I just published this book," or something like that. I think that's where I might have seen it.
Huh.
Okay.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, very nice.
I think we've run out of time. Sorry, we started a little late. We had a little setup issue here. But thank you everyone for joining us, and we'll be back same time next week talking Android development. So until then,
Now, next week I will be in London, and we will all be involved in a developer activity. So it'll be interesting to find out what shape the Hangout takes. Maybe we can get some other people on screen with us. What do you think?
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Let's just fill up all of these seats with people.
Well, until next week, yeah. Feel free to fire your questions into the moderator, and we can take a look at them, or turn up next week and ask them live.
Thanks.
So, thanks everyone for coming.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.